Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a copy of PAX Viking. It's an area majority economic Eurogame published by Ion Game Design. Players play in the 10th century acting as Vikings who have traveled eastwards towards rich trade routes, and you will need to act smart with your situations you find yourself in and form strong alliances, influence societies, and strengthen their empires along the way. You will use your longships to travel both on sea and on rivers, and you are in Western Europe, and your neighbor Jarls of Denmark and Norway are pillaging the lands. It's wise to be on good terms with these powerful allies. There are economic advantages to be gained in these lands, and it's up to you to navigate a successful saga to become the first Swedish monarch. Okay, now let's get into this game, focusing more on the mechanics than anything else. Each player starts with a player board, or a Jarl board, and each of these have their own special ability shown on the leftmost circle space. These other spots are for Saga tiles, which are more like cards in this game, but they can give players special abilities to break certain rules in the game. Most Jarls have a space for a God tile and 2 advocates, but some Jarls are asymmetric and this can be different. Then you have a spot for your followers, which are these circle tokens here. You have 4 different types, and then you have 6 longships. On the bottom, you have your possible actions you can take. You have 4 action markers, and when you take an action, you will place one of your markers on that action. Then you can see the round sequence over here to the right. So again, this is your Jarl board. The map has 4 winds. The blue is the north wind, the green is the east wind, the orange is the south wind, and the purple is the west wind. You can see spaces for Saga tiles to be placed on them, which will happen as you play, but each wind starts with at least 1 Saga tile with the matching region name, and then others have permanent locations with possible actions like these out in the west wind. There then is a market where you will use your money to gain Saga tiles as they come out. There are 4 types of these tiles: venture tiles, which will go out on the map; God tiles, which will be placed on your Jarl board; advocates, which also placed on your Jarl board; and events, which are one-time effects that trigger when the tile is discarded. Lastly, there are 4 victory conditions with different levels of difficulty that you can choose from, but you win when you fulfill one of these conditions. But you have to have a condition fulfilled. Then someone needs to play an event card to trigger a check on these conditions. So when someone plays an event card, check the victory condition cards, and if someone has completed one, the game ends. Okay, so you kind of know the general idea now of this game. Let's get into the actions that you can perform on your turn so you better understand what you're actually doing. So you will do an influence phase, an action phase, and then a winter solstice phase. The influence phase will let players check to see if they have the most of that any type of follower out on the board, and if so, they will gain a special action. The action phase is using your 4 action tokens to take 4 actions. You can invest, which means you can do one of 2 things. Either take the top Saga tile from the pile, which will be a random card for no cost, and then discard the lowest 1 money tile of the bottom of the track, or you can buy from the track any tile that you would like, paying the listed cost shown on that spot. And this action will give you more tiles to take advantage of. Sometimes you just need more to work with, but other times you might want a specific tile that you see out there. Another action you can take is to journey, and you will move 1 unexhausted longship up to 3 steps and then exhaust it, with the option of trading before or after any step if you are in a location with another player. So you can move along the oceans and seas. These areas have white lines separating from them, so you know how many times you've moved. You can move onto a land region if you are next to it and there is a river shown for you to use. If there is a harbor, then you can only enter and exit that region through the harbor. There are black borders, and this means that these areas are landlocked and require other means to get around there, like a river from the sea or someplace on the other side. Just look around. Then going from a region into a spot, which are these circle spots here, it costs a movement to do that. When first moving a longship from your Jarl board, the first step is into a region or post next to any of your home markers. And then when trading, like I mentioned before, if your longship is in the same region as another player's, you may trade Saga tiles, longships, followers, money, or non-binding promises. After movement, that longship is exhausted and unable to take another action this turn. So this action will let you go to areas, and then as you will see with the next action, you can play out Saga tiles. And that's exactly what this next action is. It's to play out Saga tiles. To do this, your longship will need to be in a post in a location that is listed on the Saga tile with no other rival longships present. You may replace and establish a Saga tile or resolve an event. With ventures, which show this V icon on its tile, you will place that tile onto any empty post, or you can replace an existing tile with the location that is listed on the tile. And this location needs to have your longship there unexhausted. You will establish the tile by playing your follower on the venture tile according to the type shown, and also paying the money shown if applicable. If you are replacing a tile, you will take the follower on that tile and give it back to that player. With advocates, you will place it on your circle for advocates on your Jarl board. If you are full up, you can replace it and return its follower to your board, and then placing your new one out, and you also place your follower on that new advocate. Gods are similar. Place it on the God circle and add your follower matching its icon shown. You can also replace these. Events are not placed out. Instead, you resolve its effects, and then you will perform a victory check to see if someone has won the game. Some events are immediate, while others are voted on to see if the event resolves. If 50% or more agree to resolve it, then it will be triggered and it will get resolved. And that's the play action, which is done to take advantage of the Saga tiles of the 4 different types. Then there is to activate. You need to have a follower and an unexhausted longship on the post, and then you will exhaust your longship and perform the written ability on that venture. You can activate the same venture multiple times on the same turn as long as you have another unexhausted longship on that post to do that with. Lastly, to parlay, which is like fighting in this game. You will need a longship alone in a post, or more longships in a post than the rival player. First, if there is no rival longship, then you will remove the follower of that other player and return it back to them to place back on their Jarl board. And then you will take the same type of follower from your board and place it on that tile. And it's now yours. If there is a rival longship present, then you can challenge to remove their longship, and you will apply your potential modifications from gods or advocates or special abilities to your total longship number on this post, and you will compare it to the rivals. You need to have more than your rival to perform a challenge. If you are able, you will then do the challenge and return the first rival's longship to their board, and if any more, they will be moved to the nearest region. The rival's choice, of course, gets to pick. Other allies and trade centers require you to pay money noted on the bottom of the post when you establish to add your indicated followers onto that post. And those are the actions that you can perform during your turn. You can perform all different actions or all 4 of the same. It doesn't matter. Whatever you think or want to do. After the action phase, Winter Solstice begins. You will take 1 money per follower type that you have placed. This will be 4 money maximum because there are 4 types. Then you will refresh things. Any exhausted components are returned to their unexhausted state. The Saga track is refilled by moving all tiles down and drawing new tiles to fill up to the 7 spaces. Lastly, you will discard down to your hand limit, which is 4 without any modification from other Saga tiles, and you will then continue taking turns until someone accomplishes a victory condition and someone triggers the end game by playing an event. So again, influence phase, you will check to see if you have the most of one of the 4 types of followers. If so, you place one of your action markers on the space to show you control it, and you might return the previous marker, giving it back to the player. You will then, for that turn and for all turns where you have the majority of that type of follower, you get that influence bonus action. Then you take your 4 actions in the action phase, and then Winter Solstice will refresh the board for the next player to go and take their turn. And, well, that's PAX Viking. The charm in the game is the Saga tiles, which gives the game its meat. Of course, each Saga tile is good, but certain ones might be better depending on both your individual circumstances, but also depending on the victory conditions that you're trying to complete. And really, these Saga cards make the game. Now, you will only use 12 of these per player each time that you play, so each game, new cards can appear, and this will really change the game as it's the meat of the game. So I'd recommend reading all of the Saga tiles when you set up the game, and when you need new ones or new ones come out, you should check them out because you might want to work towards getting some of those. But really, there are so many in this game, you will have a fun experience just playing several times to see what each of these holds and what they do. Then mixing them up on top of that, in addition, will just make it all a new experience and change your strategy anyway. But your strategy isn't just set from the first 7 tiles that you see. It's an ever-changing thing as tiles come out, so that you will need to adapt your strategy to the cards that slowly appear. But remember, you also have 4 different in-game conditions that you can go for. So if one isn't working, then you can also change to go for a different one, or shoot for all of them until you see a good, stronger path towards a certain other one. And you know what the victory conditions are in the game, so you also will need to keep track of all the other players as they get closer to the victory conditions, and, well, you will need to stop them from triggering the end game and winning. Remember, you can parlay to return other players' followers back to them, so that you want to place yours out, also trying to gain those influence bonus actions and returning other players' followers, and taking advantage of certain actions on the Saga tiles that are both out on the board already, or in your hand, or in the market, or in a random Saga tile pile. So really, the game is different each game that you play, with the rules being similar, but the strategy changing drastically. And this is great because a player can't do the same thing every single time that they play the game to win, because it's not going to work that way. Overall, this is a great Euro Viking game that requires an ongoing adaptation of your strategy to what Saga tiles are available. So you need to get your long ships out on the board with your family and friends in PAX Viking by Ion Game Design. Again, this is Boardgame Brody, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.